Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement 2 Super Mini Mail Call. So let's get right into it. This package comes from Patrick in Sweden. Hi to all my Swedish viewers. All right, we have a note here, and we have what looks like some 3D printed structures here. We'll see on the note, but I think I remember talking to Patrick about this, and these are stands for motherboards, PC motherboards, so that they're not just sitting on top of your bench directly or on top of the power supply or mouse pads is what I use. Well, hello there, Mr. Black. Here are the baby AT standoffs we spoke about. Hope they will be of use to you. They have helped me being a little less frustrated with expansion cards poking past the main board. There's a few features of the standoff: the small bump indicating where the corner of the keyboard connector is located, 2 locating pins to help with initial alignment, and 4 small holes in case you'd like to mount a standoff or board on the wall or similar. The designs leave a little bit of room for further development, like threaded inserts for one, but since it's usable directly out of the printer, I figured this is sufficient. 5 of the studs have holes, obviously to secure the board on standoffs. Use standard screws, the ones with the coarse threads work best. And again, thanks a lot for the fantastic content you create. It has been very inspirational and I have learned so much. Cheers, Patrick. Thank you very much, Patrick. Very nice note. And I'm very interested to see, well, how these work exactly. I see there's a guide pin here, and I think that's the only one I can see. Oh yeah, 2 guide pins. There's one here and one here to guide the motherboard. And then you can just put screws into this if you want, or I guess just leave it sitting on there. And I'm gonna grab a motherboard so we can test this out. Let's try it with this old XT clone motherboard. This is most likely to be the one that's gonna have screw holes in a weird location, so it may not work on this one. Yes, this has the breakthrough 286 accelerator installed in it still after making that video on this thing. And theoretically, like I said, there are the 2 little holes there. Oh, well, I think it's not gonna work right off the bat because, well, this doesn't have the hole right here that would line up with that one. So right off the bat, it doesn't work with the XT motherboard. Let me grab a different one. Right, so next up, 286 motherboard. This is the one that, well, I've done a whole bunch of videos on. I'll just move the XT off to the side. The one that has a replacement slots, and I replaced the SIPs with SIMs. Now this has a hole there, and it looks like a hole there for the alignment pins. So let's see. Oh yeah, that just goes right on there. I mean, that is awesome right there. Now I want to see if these other ones align. You know what? Why don't I go to a different color, since like this bright orange one here is going to be a little bit easier to see if those screw holes are in there. So yep, motherboard just sits right down on there, and we have a perfectly aligned screw there. This one is aligned, that is aligned. This one, that looks aligned. Yeah, everything, almost everything lines up. What looks like it doesn't line up is this one over here by the keyboard connector. But this is normal. These motherboards never were exactly, they were never exactly right. As long as you have some of them lined up properly, you're totally fine. Yeah, this one was always a double hole there. That's just the way it was, even on the original one. That one is good enough to work. Oh, I realize this one here is not in the right spot. Is there actually, oh no, there's nothing there behind it, okay. And actually now I look at it, that one there isn't really in the right spot either for this particular motherboard. But you know what? The standoffs are big enough that the motherboard is actually resting on the raised section on the 3D print. So if you push down on this, you know, it's supported properly, which is really what you actually want. Actually mounting this on the frame permanently though would be no problem, because there are 3 screws right here, plus the 2 pegs that go through. So the fact that these 2 over here don't line up is not a big deal. So let's grab some screws and actually attach this. So we have 2 types of screws that are used on PCs. You have the coarse thread type like that, which I guess is like some kind of a imperial thread pitch, and then these, which are metric, if I recall. I think they're metric. Patrick said that these thicker ones are the better ones to go onto the motherboard here. So let's see if this works. And indeed, no issues whatsoever with that going in there. And if we just pop in a second screw over here in this area, just make sure you don't put a screw in that's so big it will hit some of the traces. Well, there we go. It is now attached. I mean, that's really great. And if we grab a card, I just happen to have a VGA card sitting right here. We pop this in, then there is no issue with the card slot cover actually hitting your desk. Because normally I have to stack a few mouse pads under a motherboard so that doesn't happen. But with this, it's a non-issue. I kind of love it. I really do love it. This is very, very handy. So for me personally, I tend to keep several motherboards handy for testing purposes. They're ones you probably see on the channel a lot, like this 286 I've brought out a whole bunch of times. I have a 386SX, I have a 46 board, I have a Pentium board. All of them just kind of float around and I keep them on a shelf. And you know what? I think I'm just going to keep them all on these frames here because it just makes them a lot easier to use on the desk like this. And I think it protects the bottom of them as well from potentially getting scratched. And of course I have a bodge wire on this one to facilitate the overclocking. The original crystal oscillator was mounted here on this motherboard and this doesn't fit in between the slots there. It was a kind of a smaller low profile one. So Patrick, thank you very much for sending these all the way from Sweden. I have to say I'm very impressed with the design. And I think, like I said, my only feedback would be just to add an extra standoff in between the slots there. And I suppose maybe a couple variants that would allow it to work with things like these XT motherboards. I don't know how common the spacing is on these. And of course, when you have the old style plastic standoffs you're mounting in an AT case, there's quite a lot of wiggle room for getting this stuff mounted. But I'm noticing, oh, it does actually have a hole here in between the slot area. But that hole that's on the board there actually lines up with this part of the frame. That's where it's missing the standoff that I think it should be added for, like, say, this 286 motherboard. So I think the variant of this design, it would be you just take these two standoffs that have the pegs on them and you move them to this position right here where there's a missing one and then this one that has a screw hole. And then these two could just be the normal screw hole type. So that would be the A and the B variant. Now I went over to my 3D printer and I grabbed the print bed off of it because I was curious to see if these fit on there, and they don't. So my printer, which is an Ender 3 S1 Pro, I think it is, print bed is obviously not big enough to accommodate these frames. Or I suppose you could cut it in half and glue it together, but I wouldn't really recommend it. So I guess it's important to find a friend who has a larger print bed and then they can print some of the frames for you. They probably print relatively quickly because the design doesn't seem like it's super complicated or anything like that, but still. So thanks again, Patrick, for sending these in. I have to say, I really, really love the design. And you'll be seeing it again on some of my motherboards when I bring them out to do testing and stuff. So cool, thank you. All right, the next package to open up, it's pretty light, but it's in a pretty big box. This comes from Seth in Florida. Seth sent a bunch of stuff in before to the channel, and I know it's from him because the to address says king cake on it, because Seth has actually gone ahead and sent me some king cakes for Mardi Gras before. So opening this, there's a note. Let's take a look at what the note says. Yes, I've had this for quite a while. January, at least it wasn't 2023. Hi, Adrian. I hope you find this item of interest with all the education you provided to us on transistors, diodes, and gates. This device must be the oldest ever shown on the channel. Maybe after you review this device, we can send it over to David at Usagi Electric. Hope this is of interest to you and the channel, Seth. Is it possible this is one of those really old transistor or component testers? Oh boy, stuff's already falling out. Well, it looks very old, whatever this is. It's like a board game? I don't think it's a board game. This is the Digicomp, the first real operating digital computer in plastic. Wow, that sounds really cool. You can see logic in action. Now for the first time, see and understand the operation hidden in the circuits of a giant computer and learn the language of computers. Actual size, 12 inches by 5 by 4 when assembled. A binary computer you can program. And obviously they're having a ton of fun using the plastic computer here. Wow. So let me very carefully remove the lid. I wonder how this got so torn. Cardboard itself should have been okay over all this time. I think this is a little piece of the box. All right, I wonder how this all works. So we have little plastic parts here. Looks like some springs, standoffs, and then these are obviously the constituent parts that make up the computer itself. These look a lot like keyboard parts, don't they? Obviously the bag is more modern than the packaging here. The Digicomp 1 ROMPS. Game and problem book. Games, variations, counters, and programs. So it says down here in the corner, copyright 1968, ESR Incorporated. All rights reserved, not to be copied in whole or in part. Uh-oh. Don't copy what you're seeing here. This game and problem book has been assembled in response to a continued demand for more material on the Digicomp 1. All of these programs have been selected from those sent in by users of the Digicomp 1, many coming from the 10 to 15 year age group. In those cases where the same program was submitted, the first received or the most complete presentation was selected for publication. So Game of Triangles. So you actually program the computer with specific, I don't know, orientations. I'm just not sure how it looks once it's fully assembled. And then you're able to do stuff with it. Is that like WTF now? Or true false? Sorry, in the 1968, I don't think WTF was something that anyone was ever thinking about, at least not with the acronym. The McDonald games. I don't think this has anything to do with the food restaurant. I think this has more to do with someone who came up with them. So right, okay, cool. So a bunch of different programs to program this thing with. I mean, this is very interesting. So we have the parts list here. Okay, so you know what? Looking at this looks pretty damn interesting. So I think I'm gonna have to dedicate this to a dedicated video. I don't think this really deserves to be something on a Super Mini Mail Call episode, because there's obviously quite a bit to putting this thing together and then understanding how it works. And that's definitely more than I want to do just quickly in this video here. So this is really, really cool. Seth, yes, thank you very much. I gotta say, I am absolutely intrigued by this thing here. I'm just gonna try to put all the constituent parts back in here. So I'm just gonna put everything back in the box here, and this will have to get revisited in the future, or I can actually devote the proper amount of time to this. I do want to ask people for advice though, watching this, with this box cover. Is it okay that I tape this back together, like use packing tape on the inside here, not on the outside, but on the inside, just so this lid can be together and not falling apart like this? If you have a better recommendation of what I should do to reattach this lid, definitely let me know in the comment section. How awesome is this going to be? Digicomp 1. Let's take a look at Wikipedia here for the Digicomp 1. It says the Digicomp 1 was a functional or functioning mechanical digital computer sold in kit form, originally manufactured from polystyrene parts by ESR in 1963 and sold as an educational toy for $4.99, or equivalent to about $50 in 2023. The Digicomp 1 has been referred to as the first home computer. Looks like Nelson Winkle said that in November 1984. There was a successor, the Digicomp 2, which was not programmable, but in effect a visible calculator. So there's the Digicomp 1 though, fully assembled, and I wonder if it's programmed by putting these little white things on these caps here, and maybe this thing slides around or something like that and hits these bars, and that somehow changes the display here. The Digicomp contains 3 mechanical flip-flops, providing the ability to connect them together in a programmable way using the vertical wires that were either pushed or blocked from moving by a number of cylindrical pegs. Ah, yes, okay, so it is those pegs that you install. The whole arrangement was clocked by moving a lever back and forth, and different configurations of these cylinders caused the Digicomp to compute different Boolean logic operations. With a 3 binary digit, 3-bit readout of the flip-flops, it could be programmed to demonstrate binary logic and to perform various operations such as addition and subtraction, and play some simple logic games such as NIM. And it looks like in 2005, there was a Digicomp 1 version 2.0 made by Minds On Toys, an inexpensive binder board version of the original Digicomp, albeit with a much enhanced instruction manual. And there it is. Yeah, it looks like it's made out of cardboard and has rubber bands on there. Looks like the edition of Creative Computing magazine this was mentioned as the first home computer is potentially available on archive.org, but of course, yeah, it's still down due to a cyber attack. Hope it comes back. I really hope it comes back. I wonder if people realize when this was made, if not that much longer, just in the mid-70s, there were kit computers you could build at home, actual digital computers. I bet you from the designers of this and the people using this, that was so far off in the distance, but who knows? Maybe people got started on this thing, and those people who used this ended up getting like Altairs and IMSI kits and things like that, and then had a long career in computers. If you ever use one of these, I'd love to hear about it. So thanks very much, Seth, for sending this in, and yeah, watch for this in a future video. Okay, our next thing to open is probably a t-shirt. It feels squishy and cloth. It says from an independent artist is the from address, so it's probably the fulfillment company. I already did slice this open. Yeah, there's no specific note, but it came from TeePublic, which is one of those t-shirt fulfillment companies. Let's see what we have here. The front of the t-shirt makes it look like it's the back of a classic Macintosh computer. The back doesn't have anything on it. And oh, okay, yes, I know who this comes from. This comes from Jesse, who previously sent in t-shirts that say sometimes good caps go bad. Deoxit that socket. And apparently Jesse worked with Keg Laboratories, who are the company who makes Deoxit. So this is all above board, and that is so cool. Let's take a closer look on this camera here. So there it is, Deoxit that socket. Rusty old pins to nice. It's not quite that dramatic when you use it, but that is freaking awesome. And does a registered trademark and everything, like I said, all above board. That's freaking badass. And then this one here was probably a Mac 2CI originally, but it's obviously been photoshopped because there's no floppy drive port and we're missing one of the new bus slots there. Down here it says model number, shirt, a garment, FCC ID, none, but 10, but it runs on 100 to 240 volts. And there is a serial number here. Maybe someone can decode this and let me know what exactly it translates to. So Jesse, thank you very much for these. Deoxit that socket is especially freaking sweet, but I also like the one that's a Macintosh shirt. If anyone's interested in getting these or the previously mentioned sometimes good caps go bad shirt, I'll have a link in the description to Jesse's store so you can pick these up. And boy, I'm never really gonna have to buy any more t-shirts anymore because I just keep getting so many of them in the mail. It's just absolutely amazing. I'm a size large in case anyone is wondering what my t-shirt size is. All right, next up we have a package here from Glenn in Fort Collins, Colorado. Hi to all my Colorado viewers. Looks like we might have some components. I think this one was just packing material. This one here, on the other hand, has stuff in it. Ah, right. Oh, well, speaking of the floppy drive connector, which I just mentioned wasn't on the t-shirt, these are PCB mount floppy drive connectors for Apple computers. As far as I'm aware, these D-sub connectors aren't made anymore, although maybe these are either new old stock or potentially these are newly manufactured, which has happened. I think Big Mess of Wires got together with a manufacturer in China and actually started making these types of connectors again, although maybe not the PCB mount type. I think the ones that Big Mess of Wires were making were just the external type, you know, with the pins that go like this, not the type that gets soldered down. Now, is this a date code here? 1992, 46th week? If that is the case, then these are indeed new old stock. And I think Glenn reached out to me to offer some of these to me because at the time, which is probably a while ago, let's look at the box. Yeah, I got these back in April of 2024. I think at the time I had worked on a motherboard, a Mac motherboard, and I had to salvage these connectors because one of them was damaged off of another scrap motherboard that I have. Looking back at that April time frame, I'm thinking it was those Mac 512 boards I had that RAM expansion cards that were clipped onto them. I had two of them and they were extremely corroded and one of them had all rusty ports on it. So I had to salvage those connectors from other boards. But as you saw in my recent SE30 videos, I actually do keep and hold on to spare Mac motherboards for the express purpose of stealing parts off of them to fix other motherboards. And sometimes there's like battery damage on a Mac motherboard. It really makes it not feasible to fix, but there are tons of good components on there for use or that can be used to fix other boards. So it's pretty awesome to have 5 new ones because eventually my scrap parts are going to run out and well, there's 5 new ones to keep in stock if I ever need to fix another Mac motherboard. Thanks very much, Glenn, for sending these in. And let's do one more item. Okay, we have another package here that's a relatively large one. The funny thing is when I picked this up in my P.O. box, the shipping label had been ripped off, but I know it was for me because they stick a sticker on it that shows what P.O. box it goes to, so they knew it was for me, but I couldn't tell like who sent it or anything like that. But there was a note inside because I had to open it up to see if it was something I ordered or not. And the note says, "Yo, Adrian," it says digital on it, so I know where it has to go. Keep up the great work, Avery from Philly. Avery has sent in a bunch of stuff in the past. Usually they were little TVs and stereos. In fact, I have a little stereo boombox that has a TV in it and a cassette player. I have 2 of those. And I think one of those came from Avery. I think the other one was something that was found locally. And then I have a few other small little portable black and white TVs that Avery sent in as well. Avery seems to frequent swap meets and flea markets and things like that, and pick up any of the little small little portable TVs and stuff and then send them my way. So I have a feeling in here, even though it says digital on it, it's probably a little a little television or something, and maybe it has digital tuning. All right, actually, it looks like it's a laptop of sorts. It is not a television. And yeah, digital, as in Digital Electronics Corporation. Right, the DEC PC 320, and it's in pretty nice shape. Gotta say, the keyboard has a little bit of wear on it. You can see how the keys are a little shinier just from lots and lots of typing over the years. LCD screen's a little bit dusty. We've got contrast, power. On the back, we have VGA connector, serial port, parallel port. There is a little alignment pin here, which makes me think that that's for a docking station of sorts. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the battery, and I think it might be because there's a bit of a weird feeling here. It gets leaked. And, oh, something just flew inside or fell inside. A modem here that's additional or add-on. On the side, we have external keyboard, probably keyboard and mouse potentially. 16 volts with a pin or a plug that I don't really have. Brightness high, low. And then on this side of the machine, a bit of goop there and a floppy drive. On the back, this maybe is the battery here. Okay, everyone, let's hope that this is not absolute carnage in here. What? Oh, okay. So that's not a battery compartment. It must be on the top. So we do have some kind of an expansion interface here, maybe some kind of IDE thing. Maybe this is a 36SX and this is the math coprocessor. That's what makes the most sense to me. This must be the ROM BIOS. Model number PCP11, variant B2, Beta 2, assembled in USA, 16 volts. I may have to try to figure out a way to power this thing up from my bench supply. So this is surely the battery here. Let's see how this works exactly. So you move that to the side. There we go. Okay, so output 1.4 amp hour, 12 volts. That'll be easy enough. We can just power this up right from here. Definitely seems like the corrosion is just beginning. And I think this is a date code right here, 1991, 12th week. So absolutely, I think this is gonna be a 386SX. Let's break out the multimeter here and see if we can figure out exactly how these work here. So are any of these shorted together? There's a bunch of corrosion on this one over here. Nope. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna look for any of these that are attached to ground. So that one is, that one's not, nope, and that one. Okay, so I wouldn't be surprised if one of these is power and ground and the other one would be something like a temperature probe or something like that. But we know for sure, let's just double check. That's definitely ground and that one's ground. I'm gonna assume that this one over here is probably the power pins. So I'm gonna put a plus here and I put a minus there. And we know this is a minus over here as well. And I have the bench supply set for 14 volts, but only 500 milliamps. So I'm gonna start at that. And yes, even though this says 12 volts on it, it's probably whatever the chemistry of this nickel metal hydride. Oh, I just noticed, oh, that's probably a lock or a power switch or something. Anyways, when it's fully charged, it's gonna be more like 14 volts. So when I turn on the power supply, okay, there is no excessive current draw. It's just sitting there at 0 right now. So let's open this and see what happens when we push the power button. So what happened is I think it tried to start because you saw the lights all come on. And then what happened is the power supply went into current limiting because I think 550 milliamps is insufficient. So I'm gonna up that to 2 amps. And now we'll turn this back on. Okay, there was a little bit of current draw and then it went away, and here we go. Okay, what happened there? It kind of came on and then went off. I'm gonna reset the power supply. I need to watch the power supply to see if it's hitting the current limit. Okay, it's drawing 0 milliamps now. 300, oh, and then it drops down to 100. So this thing might just be faulty, unfortunately, because I think it should have started up. I'm gonna try going to 15 volts, and we'll just see if that makes any difference whatsoever. Here we go again. It might think it's like having a low battery situation. Yeah, kind of came on. I heard the floppy drive make a tick noise, and then, yep, all the lights are off, and it's back to 33 milliamps. Now it has me thinking that these sense pins over here are needed for something. Can I open this? I might have to brute force open this anyways and just try and take a look inside and see how that's hooked up. One of the things that sucks about these types of packs is they're usually glued together and really difficult to open. And this one is definitely starting to leak. Yeah, there's like electrolyte coming out all around here. All right, what I think I'm gonna do for now is I'm going to try to open this up with a little bit of force and then I'll come back and we'll see how it's designed inside, and maybe that'll give us a clue as to how to power this up. Okay, we're in, and it's bad, of course. It's sticky and leaky and bad. Making a mess on the bench here. So the good thing is this top cover is in good shape here, and this is the trim that would go if I wanted to try to like hot glue this back onto the computer, just to make it look a little bit better and just operate it without a battery. And when we take a look at these battery cells, just trying to figure out how this works. And one thing we can tell for sure is I had the pins wrong. The battery voltage itself is going to that pin and that pin, the two that are further away from each other. And this looks like a diode or something, but I have to think this is some kind of a thermocouple or something. Now I have to warn you, don't open these packs up if you don't know what you're doing. If these are charged at all, you must do it outside and be prepared for bad things to happen. Obviously this is beyond dead. There is 0 voltage in this cell anymore. There's no more energy stored in here. There's just a whole lot of horribleness stored in here. I'm thinking this is a fusible resistor probably, and I don't think there's any way any kind of voltage would have gotten through because the wire here completely is broken off due to corrosion. All right, so this goes into the computer like this. This is the way it goes in. So this wire here is the positive and that is the negative. Okay, so this is the new way it should be connected. So what I need to write is get my marker, and I'm going to put B. And worst comes to worst, I can grab that sensor that was in the battery pack and just connect it up to that little diode or whatever that was. Okay, we are at 14 volts, plugged into the right pins now. And okay, we're getting the battery error again, same problem. So let me go grab that diode or whatever out of the battery pack, and we'll plug that in to these other 2 pins here. Okay, I just soldered the wires right onto there. Let's see what this does. I'll turn it on, and we'll try to power this on. Oh, really? Honest. So it turns on, I hear the drive click, and then it just sort of turns off. And we're not getting that flashing battery light. Yeah, I can still see it blinking on. I wonder if I should add a cap across this. I'm gonna do that. All right, so I added this chunky capacitor here. Let's charge that up. Okay, it should be charged up now. Let's see if that makes a difference. No, it made no difference at all. Well, okay, well, I think there's something wrong with the power supply on this. This thing should have absolutely powered up by now. So let's try to take this thing apart. Let's see if there's a hard drive in here. Taking apart laptops, not exactly my most favorite thing to do. They're all plastic and, you know, things are kind of plasticky and clipped together. I think did I break a clip? No, I think that's how it. Lots of battery corrosion is falling out of this thing still. Feels like there might be a screw underneath here. Not sure how to get that apart. Okay, there we go, like that. Let's get these out, get the modem out of here. Yeah, look at that. There are screws under there. I see 2. Computer is kind of resisting over here. So I'm wondering if there are screws under these. So that's the connector for the screen. How about there? It's possible that these hold the computer together here. Oh, there we go, that was it. So the screen screws on one side hold it all together. Okay, and this won't lift off quite yet because of the screen is still connected. So I'm gonna unplug that. Oh, and what's this, the battery connection, I guess. And there we go. And looking on the inside, what do we got here? We got Dallas real-time clock. There's the 326SX, and that is the type here that's in a socket. Not common. I don't think I've ever even seen that. That's cool. This ribbon cable here is for the modem. This does have a hard drive in here. It's right here. And I guess everyone probably noticed what's going on right here. These caps here, as we know, leak a lot. And the fact that there's all this dust right in the cap area is telling us that they're all leaky. So this would need a full recap before it could even possibly work. And unfortunately, I don't have any of those caps on hand. I've actually kind of run out, especially these 100 microfarad 6 volts. That's a bit low, but 22 at 25 volts, and these are 47s at 16. So yeah, 6-volt caps. That's a little low. I wonder if parts of this are running on 3.3 volts. Otherwise, I don't see why you would want to use 6-volt caps for any reason. And these are around. Here's some more here, and definitely looks like it has leaked. Plus, we have some of our friends up here, and that doesn't look great. And over here as well. 50-volt caps, 10 microfarads. So unfortunately, this thing is pretty full with those types of caps. And it looks like the motherboard goes under the keyboard as well. This looks like another battery. You gotta be kidding me. Say what this is, but there's no other explanation for what that is except for another battery. Oh, it says resume right here. So yeah, we have another battery. I'm taking this out. I'm assuming what this is there for is if you have, they're switching out the main battery pack up here, this will allow this thing to go into a standby mode. Probably the RAM on here, which is somewhere, it can run at a really low power. Oh, right here, here it is there. So there must be a way to keep this DRAM refreshing. I think here we have 2 megabytes of RAM, Panasonic 4400, so 4 bits wide. So 2 of these chips, 8 bits wide, and 16-bit system. So therefore, you need 4 of these. And yeah, I have a feeling these are 1 meg for 2 chips, so 2 megs total. But yeah, this is starting to corrode as well. Looks like out of the end there. So another little battery in here. Let's plug the top lid back in here for the battery connection and the screen. And we can try to power this thing up. Just need to make sure I have access to the power button. I'm putting the chances at this working at basically 0 because of the fact that the caps are all leaky. Okay, there we go. Turn on the power. And I have the power button under here. And it seems to be even more dead than it was. Okay, so we're at 0 milliamps. Now if I hold the button down, none of the LEDs even turn on anymore. I mean, these are unplugged, but the ones underneath here, which are the ones that show up here, I can see them in there. They don't do anything. Although, actually, now I think about it, these were the only 2 that ever did anything. And of course, the cable's unplugged, so that won't do anything. But yeah, this thing is unfortunately dead as a doornail. And nothing about that surprises me, because all those caps have completely spilled their guts on the board. So just beware if you're trying to get into this era of machines. There's a really good chance things are going to be in very bad shape on the inside. And you have to be pretty dedicated to try to get these apart properly. And obviously do like a full recapping on this board. You can see there's just caps everywhere. And then inspect for the damage that's caused by these leaky caps. And then see if you can get it working. This is probably an IDE hard drive that's in here. It's like a little full height thing. So I think any kind of IDE drive might work in here. And that might actually work, and the floppy drive is pretty standard. And probably if you recap this thing, it's probably going to work. Although who knows how well the screen's going to work. This will be a cold cathode backlit screen probably, which when they're this age, they're very, very dim and don't work super well, not to mention the inverter and stuff, which I assume is inside the screen. That might need to be serviced as well. And then be aware that it's got this resume battery, which I don't know if it works without it or not. And you have the Dallas you're going to have to sort, and this is definitely soldered onto the board, so you're going to have to break that open or remove it from the board to swap the battery out on there. And then the main battery pack was all leaky, so you have to come up with a way to gut it and replace it with something modern, and never plug this thing into charge, because obviously it's probably a NiCad battery, so unless you replace the cells with other NiCads or nickel metal hydride, you can't just put lithium ion in there, not without some extra circuitry to protect them and stuff like that. So I've roughly reassembled this machine. Most of the screws and parts are still out. I'm just going to leave this stuff out of the machine. There's no point to fully reassemble it since it needs so much work to try to get this working again. So thank you very much, Avery, for your thinking of me and sending this into the channel. Unfortunately for now, this is going to have to go on the back burner. I have way too many other things I need to work on ahead of a project like this. Not to mention, I don't even have a lot of those caps and stuff in stock to even attempt to do a quick recap on this to see if it can work. If you're trying to get into this era of machines and you buy a DEC PC 320p, just know that the battery pack will probably have completely leaked. All the caps have leaked on the inside, and there's a separate little standby battery in there, which has begun leaking as well. Not to mention you have a Dallas real-time clock you're going to have to sort out as well. So while laptops are small in stature, they often, especially the old ones like this, are huge in the amount of work that they require to get working. And that's one of the reasons why I'm just not a big fan of these types of things, of laptops. So there we go. That's going to be it for this mail call episode. Thanks, Avery, for sending in this deck laptop. Thank you, Jesse, for sending in those t-shirts. Thank you, Seth, for that awesome 1960s plastic computer kit project thing for kids. Definitely, if anyone's ever used one of those or seen those in operation, comment down below. I could use as much help as I can get because I definitely want to get back to that and start putting that thing together again. And lastly, thank you, Patrick, for sending in these freaking awesome 3D printed tray mount things for motherboards. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, you'll definitely be seeing these again because I'm going to be attaching these once this video is done to all of my motherboards that I often bring out and use on the channel. And if you like this video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. But if you didn't, you know what to do. Subscribe, all the other YouTube junk. And of course, my supporters make it possible I do this full time. Their names are scrolling up beside the screen to get early access to videos, other behind the scenes content, and it's Patreon and YouTube memberships. And both of those are available for you to subscribe to if you so desire. There's all links in the description to all the things in this video that I can at least figure out and find. So yeah, check down there. And that's going to be that. So stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. And I just realized at some point I took the microphone off my shirt, so I'm sorry you'll be hearing a whole lot of backup audio there coming from this camera here. I'm glad I have it, because this thing was sitting on the table, and I didn't even notice. Don't. Okay, bye.